to wrap things up real quick. First and second negative speakers today, they mentioned that abortion is inherently not very dangerous in terms of the procedure, because they believe that the complications are very similar to that of a pregnancy, which may be true, but does not hold water to the fact that there might be complications post-abortion, such as the increase in likelihood of a premature birth, or as well as, like I said, even if you're pro-life, that doesn't necessarily mean you're religiously pro-life. It could just be a simple value you hold, like understanding the status quo of many cultures, such as like the Buddhists, who believe that it is killing it's a deliberate destruction of a human being, and that's been going on for thousands of years. And so the baby, although the spinal reflex is not completely intact, like she mentioned, there's a lot of things that aren't completely finished even after the baby's born. I mean, the baby can be born and the plates in his head are still not fused. That doesn't mean his skull doesn't work up to capacity at all. And so we understand that adoption can be expensive, but that isn't the economical burden is not enough of a reason to try to say that we shouldn't do this, because prisons are expensive. That doesn't mean we're going to close down all our prisons. And Roe versus Wade, like I mentioned, although some states would still have their states very specific laws that cannot be breached by federal laws. Like I mentioned before Roe versus Wade, the vast majority of the states had granted rights of personhood to these babies. And so I just want to mention that there's one example of a 12-year-old victim of incest who was impregnated by her stepfather, who writes that years later she was depressed, suicidal, furious, outraged, lonely, and felt a sense of loss. And the justification by the judges in the Roe versus Wade was that it should be considered a zone of privacy, and they related it to marriage contraceptives. But I don't believe that is an accurate analysis, because marriage contraceptives and the use of condoms and stuff is very much private, but I don't believe that an abortion is private, because there's a completely separate life that you're dealing with that is being violated. And so it is true that women who commit abortions face physical, psychological, and economic stresses right after that, because this biological life does fulfill the four requirements, which would be the metabolism, the growth, the reaction to stimuli, and eventual reproduction when it grows up. And so, like I mentioned, abortion is not referenced in the Constitution, and it was not in place as a judicial decision. It was a legislative position by the Supreme Court. And so some might argue that forcing people to have children leads to more child abuse, but Dr. Edward Lanowski, professor of pediatrics at USC, reported that 91% of abused children are very much wanted before birth. So that's not a reason to have an abortion. And the steps in place currently for Roe versus Wade don't solve the health risks associated with abortion.